as promised, we are back here on the Cowboys Report to break down what the Cowboys draft order looks like with the results of the Week 18 matchups. The Dallas Cowboys have locked up the number 12 pick in the 2025 NFL draft order. They finished a game behind the 49ers, who, as we sit here filming this, are getting pounded by the Cardinals to secure the number 11 pick for San Francisco. We will break down some draft targets for the Cowboys and the updated draft order. And we will have all the Cowboys coverage you could want this offseason: draft, free agency, coaching staff. We'll discuss tomorrow morning. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. You can find us at youtube.com/cowboytv. This is the current NFL draft order. The Titans have the number 1 overall pick, all tied by record, determined by strength of schedule. By the way, the Browns are at number 2, the Giants at number 3, and the Patriots at number 4. They went from 1 to 4 with a win today, and they also fired Jod Mayo about an hour later. The Jags are at 5, the Raiders at number 6, and then I will make an asterisk on this. I believe that the strength of schedule tiebreaker between the Panthers and Jets is actually going to be determined by the Lions-Vikings game tonight. If the Vikings win, I think the Panthers get pick number 7. Otherwise, the Jets would actually jump back to that spot, which will only cost them 1. With their not official, but about to be official win over the Dolphins, it doesn't really matter for the Cowboys. It could flip, but I just wanted to make note of it. The Saints are at number 9, the Bears at number 10, the 49ers at number 11, and the Dallas Cowboys have the number 12 overall pick. The Cowboys, because of tiebreakers, are actually 2 losses out of the top 10 pick. They lost 2 more games, and they might have been able to win the tiebreaker over the Bears. It would have been a little bit closer, but I think the Cowboys might have had a chance at it. But still, with a full 2 losses, they would have won the tiebreaker over San Francisco if they had 1 fewer loss or 1 fewer win. By the way, a win in today's games would have dropped them down to number 15. So that late miracle touchdown drive by the Commanders actually helped the Cowboys get 3 draft pick slots up in this year's NFL draft. So, I'll break down some targets coming up here on today's show. But first, who do you want the Cowboys to draft in round 1? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Alright, first some players who are likely going to be off the board, whether you want them or not. I don't anticipate them lasting to the Cowboys pick at number 12. Travis Hunter, I would assume, is a top 2 pick, guaranteed. Would be kind of weird otherwise. I think both the top quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shadar Sanders, are going to go early, whether it's 1 and 3 or 3 and 6 or whatever. I don't think they'll make it that far down. I would also be surprised if guys like Abdul Carter and Mason Graham, 2 players I really like out of Penn State and Michigan, the edge rusher and DT, respectively, made it all the way down to some of those later picks. I would be very happy to take them, but I have my doubts they'll slide quite that far. Some other NFL draft prospects here to keep our eyes on. How about T. McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona? I think it is very clear that another playmaker is needed in this offense, whether it's running back, receiver, or even tight end. McMillan is a big-frame receiver who moves better than his size would otherwise indicate. I like his game. I also know the Patriots at 4 and other teams scattered throughout are in desperate need of receiver help, and maybe that's not the outcome you end up getting for McMillan. There's also Will Johnson, the Michigan corner who only played in 6 games this year, but was pretty good when he was out there. 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. Michigan overall didn't have the season they were hoping for, but they've got several very talented football players in the end, which I do think should not be overlooked. I mentioned Johnson since, with Diggs being H, maybe you're in the market for a corner. But again, I'd be a little surprised if he didn't go top 10. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. It is the best place to get real money sports action, with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. We are very much into playoff time, both pro football and college football as well. It's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with PrizePicks. You can 1x your money on PrizePicks. Here is one of my PrizePicks slates. This is a college football CFP semifinal slate. Jeremiah Smith more than receiving yards. Quinn Ewers less than passing yards. Trayvon Henderson more than yards on the ground. So, download the app today over at prizepicks.com. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at PrizePicks. Now, I do think you are right smack dab in the middle of potential Ashton Gentry range, the Boise State running back. Teams that stand out to me are the Raiders at 6, depending on their quarterback situation. They have a need at the running back position. Dark Horse 1 is the Niners, but they also just paid McCaffrey. I think that's some paranoia speaking more than anything else. I think you'll see a lot of mock drafts in the next few weeks or months with the Cowboys thinking Gentry at number 12. We'll see if that ends up playing out that way or not. But in terms of the best player on the board, I think you'd be able to make a very real argument that if you're on the clock at pick number 12, the Boise State product is the best player there. So, would you draft him? Or are you against running backs in a really strong class at all in round 1? Let me know why for yes and for no. Continuing with some positional value concerns. That's safety Malachi Starks. He's a really good football player. I like his game a lot. I don't think he had as good of a season this year, doing some more even nickel stuff than he's done in past years for Georgia. I think this is also kind of right around his range, with Arizona and Indy standing out to me as potential threats. And the Dolphins, depending on what happens with Javon Holland. I didn't think Starks is a round 1 player. I have a round 1 grade most likely for me. And at pick 12, you might only have 1 or 2 of those guys on the board once you're on the clock. Some offensive linemen I want to mention. 2 guys stand out to me as potential early round 1 picks, Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell. All things can change, as they always do. I like Kelvin Banks, the tackle from Texas, more than Will Campbell, the tackle at LSU. Both guys might be viewed as guards. I would also wonder if you feel the need to add yet another first-round premium pick along the offensive line. I also know how early offensive linemen go, and those guys can end up being pushed up the draft board just because of significant needs like the Niners. I think they would actually be a really good fit for Kelvin Banks with what they do on offense and what they need up front, which stands out as a threat to me. The Patriots obviously need offensive line help and receiver help. Lots of teams are in the market for linemen, which could push those guys to be off the board before the Cowboys go on the clock. Now, what do you think right now is the biggest player position need? We can't do head coach or owner. That's cheating. What's the biggest need for the Cowboys? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Talk about Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. Again, he is a yak generator, an after-catch machine. That's what Luther Burden is. I like his game. He makes plays after the catch and brings a different element than what this Cowboys team currently has. Emeka Egbuka, meanwhile, has had his production dip since the awesome 2022 campaign. Marvin Harrison Jr. and then Jeremiah Smith both made him kind of the wide receiver 2 the past 2 seasons for the Ohio State Buckeyes. He might end up putting up a 1,000-yard season depending on how the next 2 CFP games end up going, but he is more of that route runner. I think he slots in really well as a number 2 receiver alongside someone like CeeDee Lamb. The question is that worth the number 12 overall pick in the NFL draft? Not so sure. Some defensive names to monitor. Jalen Walker is a very fun player, and I think he's probably closer to Micah Parsons in play style and role. I think he's more of a hybrid edge linebacker blitzer than he is to Marvin Overton, who is more of the linebacker who blitzes sometimes. I think Jalen Walker at his best as a pass rusher, but can do linebacker stuff for you, can be creative. He's just a good football player, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's pretty close to a consensus top 10 player in this year's class. M. Williams, just plug in the Trayvon Walker comp. It's simple, it's easy. He missed time with injuries this year, but he was playing well before Georgia got knocked out of the CFP race. Good football player, but also didn't have the breakout year people were hoping for, partly because of the injuries. James Pierce, you're not going to like this comp, but we can take the outfield stuff off of it. More of a Randy Gregory type. He's a situational pass rusher. He's not going to be an elite run stopper. He is kind of like the anti-Marshawn Lattimore, but on third and long, let him out there and let him go get after the quarterback. Tennessee didn't really use him as a run stopper, which is a significant red flag. So, what is your confidence level in the Cowboys this offseason? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. 1 to 10, what's your confidence level? I got 8 names on here, and I really just want to group together the other non-Mason Graham defensive tackles, because Kenneth Grant's got fans out of Michigan, Ty Williams out of Ohio State, Walter Nolan, even some Derek Harm. I don't love Harmon in the top 15. Grant might even be pushing it a little bit for me. Maybe you get lucky, and one of the good DTs slides all the way down to round 2. That's a possibility. But there are some very good defensive tackle prospects in this year's class. Siobhan Rell at ECU would probably be in the conversation if he hadn't torn his ACL late in the season. Also, Benjamin Morrison, there are some concerns over the hip injury. Tyler Warren is the best tight end in this year's class, as far as I'm concerned, alongside Colston Loveland. But boy, can you spend a top 12 pick on a tight end? I don't know if you can. And then both A&M edges, Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart, have fans with concerns as well. In general, this draft class kind of feels like the top 5 guys are more top 10 picks, the top 10 picks are more top 15 picks, and the top 15 picks are more mid to late round 1 guys.